Welcome to Politics for Patriots. Here's your host, the eviscerator of progressive nonsense, the executioner of imbecility, and the grim reaper of BS, Eddie Zipper.
When I heard that Taylor Swift had endorsed Marsha Blackburn's opponent in the Tennessee Senate race, my first thought was, thank God 14-year-olds can't vote. But Phil Bredesen, that's the guy that Taylor endorsed, was clearly more excited about the endorsement than I was. He is actually using campaign money to make sure that every Tennessean knows that Tay-Tay dropped his name on Instagram. How great would it have been if Kanye West had interrupted Taylor's endorsement? You know, something like this. Taylor says, I would like to support a woman for the Senate, but I could never support Marsha Blackburn because...
Yo, Taylor, I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish. But
Trump is on his hero's journey right now.
Don't try to act like I doctored that. That was 100% legit. All right, why don't Democrats ever learn that celebrity endorsements are worth nothing to them? Every celebrity endorsement of a Democrat is a dog bites man story. Who cares? The political market is oversaturated with celebrities endorsing Democrats. Every time you turn around, some idiot celebrity is talking about how great the Democrats are. Oh, this candidate. They don't even care. There's high supply, low demand. That's what the celebrity endorsements are about. There are lots of them, and nobody cares about them. High supply, low demand. How did all those celebrity endorsements work out for Hillary Clinton? Remember that 2016 election? It was like every celebrity was voting for Hillary Clinton. She was sure to win. If you polled celebrities, 100% of them were voting for Hillary Clinton. Now, I haven't been following politics super close. Is Hillary Clinton president of the United States? She's not. But Katy Perry. But Beyonce. Robert De Niro, Jay-Z, LeBron James, Bruce Springsteen, Bon Jovi, Meryl Streep, Morgan Freeman, Cher, Bryan Cranston, Oprah, Lena Dunham, Will Ferrell, Deborah Messing, Joss Whedon, J.J. Abrams, Judd Apatow, Sarah Jessica Parker. The list goes on. Celebrities with endorsements are the political equivalent of strangers with candy. And Democrats are like, candy! Yes, free candy is exciting, but guess what? It is not safe for consumption. Celebrity endorsements are all that Halloween candy that should get thrown away because it isn't sealed. But Democrats gobble it up because it may be dangerous, but candy! Essentially, you are getting endorsements from random millionaires. And nobody is more relatable than random millionaires.
I've never had a locker. I just keep my stuff in stupid mansions.
You're a Democrat. You want Democrats to vote for you. You want ordinary Americans to vote for you. Yet here you are, collecting endorsements from the 1%. Nobody outside the 1% bubble cares how millionaire celebrities are voting. Unless, there's one caveat to this, unless they are endorsing Republicans. Because that is actually interesting. Endorsing Republican things when you are a Hollywood 1%er is iconoclastic. It is brave. It is a huge risk. Endorsing leftist nonsense when you're a Hollywood 1%er is about as brave as brushing your teeth. Now, I do not particularly care what Kanye West thinks, to be honest. But you have to admire the guy's guts for wearing that MAGA hat around New York and Los Angeles. That is something that is actually brave. That is actually iconoclastic. Right? It's not fake brave. It's not pretend iconoclasm. It is actually brave. So, nationally, Celebrity endorsements for Democrats do not matter. We saw that in the 2016 election. Everyone who gives a crap what Lena Dunham thinks about politics, guess what, is already voting for Democrats, or they are 14 years old. But how do you think, that's nationally, right? How do you think celebrity endorsements play when they are localized to the state of Tennessee? I have some advice on this. If you are a Democrat running for the Senate in a state that Trump won by almost 30 points, you should be asking celebrities to kindly refrain from endorsing you. You should ask millionaire celebrities to please shut their mouths.
Hi, I'm Taylor Swift. I'm famous, but I'm really nice.
So let's take a look at Tennessee and find out how much Tennesseans care about voting the way that Taylor Swift wants them to. Before I talk about this, I have to give my caveat on the polls. They don't work the way the media thinks that they work or wishes that they worked. The media cherry picks polls and reports them individually. Individual polls are basically meaningless, but the media treats them like they're the scoreboard at a football game, and you can look up at the poll and see exactly what the score is. That is not how polling works. The reason that it doesn't work like that is not just sampling error, but also because pollsters don't know what the electorate is going to look like ever. They can't know. You don't know what the electorate is going to look like until you see it. You would think one or two of these media characters would have probably learned that after the 2016 election. But they seem to have learned nothing. Media, Democrats, nobody learned anything from the 2016 election. So pollsters have no idea what the electorate will look like, and this is more true the more local a race is. So you can't predict a Senate race as well as you can predict a national race, and you can't predict a district level race as well as you can poll a state level race, predict a state level race. So that's the way it works. The more local it is, the harder it is to use polling data. The real value of polling is to look not at the numbers, but at the trend. So let's take a look at the Tennessee polling. Early September, Bredesen had a 5-point lead on Marsha Blackburn. Do I believe that that poll is correct? Do I believe that Marsha Blackburn was getting beat in a state where Trump won by almost 30 points? No, I do not believe that. But I'm here to look at the trend, not the individual poll numbers. Whatever sampling bias is contributing to Blackburn being down by 5 in that poll, that sampling bias isn't going to change much from poll to poll. So if I look at the trend instead of at an individual poll, I can see something meaningful beyond the sampling bias. I can see right through the sampling bias. Okay, so late September, Blackburn now is up by 5. So that's a 10-point change from the first poll to the late September poll. All right, early October, Blackburn up by 8. New poll yesterday, Blackburn up by 14. Now, I don't know about you, but I could dance to this beat forever. Tennessee is trending hard towards Republicans, and guess what? Don't blame yourself, Taylor. Tennessee is not the only place where that is happening. Polls all over the place are trending toward Republicans, all over the country. And that's not a surprise given that Democrats just spent a month showing their true colors while the whole nation was watching. I've talked about the Kavanaugh hearings ad nauseum, so I don't want to get into all that. I think we've established that it was a circus. I think we've all heard the word circus 92,000 times now. But I can't stress enough the huge, titanic miscalculation that Democrats made. They decided to take a stand with the whole country watching. They decided to take a stand against the presumption of innocence, and it blew up in their faces. In the Harvard-Harris poll, 60% said Kavanaugh should be confirmed if the FBI didn't find evidence to corroborate the allegations against him. That's a huge majority. 75% say that Feinstein should not have held on to Ford's letter. That was the most damaging thing of all. Do you know how hard it is to get 60, 70, 75% of Americans to agree on anything? But Democrats have an angry mob mentality.
No, there's no justice like angry mob justice.
Beating on the bronze doors of the Supreme Court, trying to pry them open. I mean, who thinks that that is a good look? Nobody. Right? Slate and Vox both ran opinion pieces claiming that we should abolish the Supreme Court. That is insane. Everyone normal thinks that that is unhinged nonsense. Democrats are operating way outside the Overton window. And if you're not familiar with that term, the Overton window is the range of ideas that are tolerated in public discourse. Okay, so if you're a politician or a political party, you don't want to be outside the Overton window. Abolish the Supreme Court as a sick burn on conservatives is way outside the Overton window. You can't even see it from the Overton window. You can stick your face up against the Overton window and look out in every direction, and you will not find abolish the Supreme Court anywhere. Okay, that is way outside the Overton window. The culmination of all this nonsense is destroying Democrats in the polls. In every episode, I go into the nonsense. I'm not going to get into the nonsense. I think we've established that the Democrats are behaving like an angry mob right now. All right, so I want to get back to the trends. That's what I'm talking about in this episode. That's what's interesting me is the trends. Okay? A couple quick trends. The Real Clear Politics average of the polls has Trump approval way up several points since the Brett Kavanaugh debacle. Generic congressional balloting way up way up for Republicans since the Brett Kavanaugh debacle. Right now, Real Clear Politics, who averages all of the major polls in each of these races, shows Republicans with 50 safe Senate seats and Democrats with 44 safe Senate seats. And there are 6 toss-ups. Tennessee was a toss-up. Now it's moved into the safe category. Taylor Swift notwithstanding. Remember Beto O'Rourke was supposed to be the great blue hope in Texas. That seat is no longer rated as a toss-up. Cruz is now consistently high in the polls. He was up 9 in the latest Quinnipiac and 8 in the latest New York Times. Before that, they were way closer together. So that means that Cruz is probably actually up by double digits there. Importantly, though, Cruz is polling over 50% now. Texas is going to be safe. That's going to be a Republican seat. Beto O'Rourke is not going to pull off a miracle. All right, so what are the 6 toss-up states? The 6 toss-up states listed by Real Clear Politics are Arizona. Last month, polls had McSally down 2 and 3 points. Newest poll has McSally up by 6. And none of those polls were taken before video surfaced of Kristen Sinema talking smack about Arizona.
As we see in this very quote, that the states are the laboratories of democracy, and then my state, Arizona, is clearly the meth lab of democracy.
Have fun losing. I bet she wishes she'd only said 42% of Arizona was the meth lab for democracy. That's the trouble with going around saying crazy stuff all the time and then trying to act like you're super moderate. Like, videotape exists, people. All right, so there she was talking a little smack about Arizona. So the next poll is probably going to look better for Martha McSally even than the Martha is up by 6 poll. I don't think those comments about Arizona being the meth lab of democracy are going to help Sinema close the gap. I think Arizona will be the 51st seat for Republicans. All right, next up, Nevada. Late September polls showed Dean Heller down by 4. Now, 2 October polls show Heller up by 2. Nevada went blue in the last election, but Republicans are trending there anyway. The polls are trending towards Republicans, this time in Nevada, in a blue state. So the race is too close to call right now because the polls are only showing Heller up by 2. But momentum is clearly on Heller's side. Heller has all the benefits of incumbency. Heller is leading in those 2 most recent polls, and I think Heller is going to pull this one out. I'm going to call that the 52nd Republican seat. All right, in Montana, every poll shows Tester up, but pretty close to the margin of error. In 2012, Tester won that seat by a 3.7% margin. And that's in a race where a libertarian candidate took 6.6% of the vote. There's a libertarian candidate again this time, so that could play spoiler here and help Tester. But last election, Obama was topping the ballot, and that was a big advantage for Tester. Obama took 42% of the vote, lost to Romney by 13 points. In the 2016 election, Trump beat Clinton by a much wider margin in Montana, by over 20%. President Trump has campaigned hard against Tester, while Tester has tried to pretend that Trump and he are bros. Right? It's the same con that Manchin is running over in West Virginia. Oh yeah, me and Trump, we're buds. You know, I'm running this newspaper ad welcoming Trump to Montana, even though he's coming here to talk smack about me to thousands of people. All right, the problem for Tester is that his vote against Kavanaugh, which nothing has been polled since he voted against Kavanaugh, that is going to be fresh in the mind of voters. And it is going to swing them away from Tester. So in this race, I'm going to go against the polls, and I think Tester is going to lose this seat. And I think it'll be because of his vote against Kavanaugh. I mean, among other things, but I think that really is going to seal it. I think the election would have been closer, and Tester might have pulled it out if he had voted for Kavanaugh, but he didn't. All right, so I'm going to call that the 53rd Republican seat. In Missouri, the polls are all over the place in Missouri, but I don't even care. I don't believe for a second that Claire McCaskill is going to hold that seat. This is the one I am most confident about. She only won that seat last time because Todd Akin got destroyed in the national media for his legitimate rape comments. Add to that the fact that Obama was at the top of the ticket. That brought in a lot of Democrat votes in Missouri. It made a much bigger difference in Missouri than it did in Montana. All right, the Obama turnout machine is famous, and we have yet to see Democrats accomplish anything without it in years. Think about it. 2008, Obama turnout machine, Democrats do amazing. 2010, no Obama on the ballot, Democrats get trounced. Red wave. 2012, Obama turnout machine, Democrats do good. Not as good as 2008, but pretty good. 2014, no Obama turnout machine, Democrats get trounced, another red wave. 2016, no Obama turnout machine, Democrats get trounced again. I mean, they lost in the presidential election in Wisconsin, almost Minnesota, not quite, but almost. Michigan, they lost Pennsylvania. I mean, they lost some of these states by so much. Like Ohio, Indiana went way more for Trump than they did for Romney. So, without the Obama turnout machine, Democrats have major problems going back a decade. All right, when Obama's on the ballot, Democrats do much better. When Obama's not on the ballot, Democrats nosedive. All right, 2018, there is no Obama on the ballot. No Obama turnout machine to help you. It'll be a little different in blue areas, but Missouri is bright red. The polls are wrong. McCaskill is going to definitely lose this seat. I'm not as comfortable saying that about any of the other races as I am about Missouri. I think McCaskill will be out. I think that'll be the 54th Republican seat. Next up, Indiana. All polling data in Indiana is within the margin of error, and it shows Donnelly with a very thin lead. All the polls show Donnelly with a very thin lead. Now, Donnelly won that seat in 2012 by 5.7%. That is the exact amount of votes that the Libertarian candidate took. But it was 2012. That's an Obama turnout machine victory. Now, Romney won Indiana by 10%, even against that Obama turnout machine, which was weaker in 2012 than it was in 2008. Trump won Indiana by twice the margin. Twice the margin that Romney won it by. All right, Trump won it by 20 points. So, this is a Trump plus 20 state most recently. Like I said, right now, polls showing Donnelly with a slim lead. But, guess what about that lead is interesting. It is the fact that there has been no polling data taken in Indiana since Donnelly towed the Democrat line on Kavanaugh. So he's got the Kavanaugh vote going against him. He's got the Republican momentum going against him. He's got no Obama turnout machine. He's trying to run in a state that Trump won by 20 points. I think that's going to be the 55th Republican seat. All right, over to Florida. This is the toughest one. This is the most difficult call to make. Florida is Bill Nelson versus Rick Scott, right? Bill Nelson is the incumbent senator. Rick Scott is the current governor. And the polls have this thing in a dead tie. In 2014, polls showed Scott losing the governor's race by a very thin margin. He won it by a razor-thin margin instead. But that was a big Republican turnout year. I don't think we're going to have a red wave like that this year. All right? There's too much peace and prosperity. People get more fired up. You have more of a red wave when, you're trying to fight against something. Like the Obamacare or the Obama president, whatever. You're going to have more of a red wave when you're fighting against something than when there's peace and prosperity. Although the Kavanaugh thing is going to help with that because there's not total peace. There's a problem with our domestic tranquility, and that is the far left. The far left is trying to disrupt our domestic tranquility on purpose. Right? You've seen the videos banging on the Supreme Court doors. They're unhinged. But here's an interesting thing to think about. Rick Scott does carry a high approval rating as Florida governor. It's usually over 50%. Right now it's at 49% according to the latest Morning Consult poll, who polls all those different states to measure the approval ratings of governors and senators and all that stuff. I think the response to Hurricane Michael will play into the final results of this, and I don't know what that'll be yet. Bill Nelson won that seat by 13% in 2012, which makes him much more formidable than Tester, Donnelly, or McCaskill in their states. Okay? Nelson actually won this state by a pretty wide margin. Unlike Tester, Donnelly, and McCaskill, who do not win by large margins. So working in Scott's favor, though, is the fact that his success as governor pretty much cancels out a lot of Nelson's incumbency advantage. Right? Scott has those same advantages of incumbency. He has a network that he's already built in Florida. He has the media access that you get when you're the incumbent. He has all those incumbency things. He's just not actually the incumbent for that seat, but he's the current governor, so he has the advantages. He can claim credit for having done things for the state of Florida because he's been the governor for several years. All right, so that cancels out a lot of Nelson's incumbency advantage. But the fact that Nelson was winning that seat by 13% at the same time Obama was winning Florida by only a 1% margin makes me nervous. But hold on. What's this? Take a look at Morning Consult's tracking of approval ratings. These were taken in October, so they are brand new. Scott's approval in Florida as governor right now is at 49%. Nelson's approval as senator is at 39%. Okay, and just to give you an idea, Rubio's approval is at 41%. So, this race looks like it's in a deadlock, but Floridians are 8 points happier with Scott right now than they are with Nelson in their current jobs. That certainly can't mean anything good for Nelson, can it? So I'm going to go out on a limb, and this one is out on a limb. This is the hardest one to call, but I'm going to take Rick Scott on this one. I'm very tentative about it, but I'm going to take him because that approval rating is so much higher than Nelson's. 49% of Floridians approve of the job that Nelson is doing. 39% approve of the job that Nelson is winning. So if I'm looking at these polls and I see a dead tie, I'll take the approval rating, a 10-point gap in approval. I'll take that as a tiebreaker. All right, that's 56 seats for Republicans. That's my count. 56 seats for Republicans. And you may be wondering, what about West Virginia? Unfortunately, I think Joe Manchin has that wrapped up. I think his vote for Kavanaugh sealed the deal, which is too bad because he waited to hear how Collins was voting. So we all know, everybody who's paying attention knows that Joe Manchin would have voted differently if it had mattered. If it was going to change the outcome, Joe Manchin would have voted against Brett Kavanaugh. We could all see that. Why else would he hold his vote until right after Susan Collins had announced hers? But people don't pay that close attention. The media is saying, oh, Joe Manchin voted for him. Good for Joe Manchin. So I think his vote for Kavanaugh sealed the deal for him. I think he's going to win that seat or hold that seat, which is too bad. Right? What a pathetic wind tester he is. I really am not a fan of Joe Manchin. He is like textbook wind tester. If you open up in your dictionary to wind tester, there's going to be a picture of Joe Manchin. Right? His entire Senate career is basically that moment he had at the State of the Union where he was about to stand up and clap for something that President Trump said. And then he looked around and saw the Democrats were sitting down, so he slunked back into his seat and didn't clap. That's his entire Senate career in one 5-second clip. But all that aside, the majority of the polls show him with a decent lead. He won that seat by 25% in 2012. West Virginians see him as a friend of Cole, and I think he's going to win that seat. Not by 25%, but by probably 5 to 10%. He has hurt himself there, no doubt. But I don't think it's enough to get Morrissey over the finish line there. I hope I'm wrong on that. There is a new GOP poll that shows Manchin up by only 1%. So fingers crossed. But right now, I'm going to give that one to Joe Manchin. So that means my final numbers are 56 to 44. That's how I see the Senate turning out after this November election. 56 Republican seats, 44 Democrat seats. About a month ago, I said on the show that I saw it shaken out about 54 to 46. So Republicans have momentum even on this show. I did have them winning 54 seats. Now I think that they're going to end up with 56 seats. The House is going to be a little bit harder. The Republicans might not take the House. They might not hold on to the House. They might lose that to the Democrats. But if they do, I think it's going to be by a narrow margin. But having said that, Republicans have momentum in those House races too, just like they do nationally and in the Senate. All right, check out the Real Clear Politics tracking. All right, based on the polls, Real Clear Politics moves these seats to, they have different categories like likely Democrat, toss-up, likely GOP, and that's based on an average of all the polls, which category the seats go into. And as new polls come out, the seats sometimes move. So a seat might be a toss-up one day, and then a good poll comes out for a Republican, and then the seat moves to lean Republican. Right? That's what happened. That's why the Tennessee seat isn't listed as a toss-up anymore. Because you had Marsha Blackburn polls showing her up 8-14. They moved the average out of the toss-up range, and now that's considered leans Republican. All right? So, right now, the Republicans have the momentum in those House races. As the new polls come out, the seats are moving towards leans Republican or from leans Democrat to toss-up. That's how the seats are moving. They're all moving in the Republican direction right now. If you look at the last 15 moves that happened, the last 13 of those last 15 have been in the direction of Republicans. That's a huge percentage. Everything is moving Republican. All right? Only 2 of those moves have been in favor of Democrats. That pretty much tells you what you need to know about momentum in the country right now. Right now, all the political momentum is moving towards Republicans because the Democrats are operating outside the Overton window by choice. I don't know why they're doing it, but they're choosing to do that. Okay? So here's one thing that I can tell you definitively. I've been studying all these polls. I've been watching them. Here's what I can tell you definitively. Republicans will win the Senate. I cannot tell you definitively that Republicans will keep the House. I don't know what's going to happen there yet. We're going to have to wait and see on that one. But here's something I can tell you with absolute certainty. There will not be a blue wave. Democrats may take back the House, but there will not be a blue wave. You can forget about it.
Don't just forget about it.
Forget about it.
Forget about it. Forget about it. Forget about it. Forget about it. Forget about it. Forget about it.
Forget about it. Forget about it.
This may not be a wave election, but if this is a wave election, momentum right now tells us that it will be a red wave, not a blue wave. Anybody watching the movement of the polls, that's the way you're supposed to watch polls, by the way. Anybody watching the movement of the polls can see that the only possible wave election we're going to have is a red wave election. All right, that's it for today. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe on iTunes. Please leave me a review on iTunes. I would greatly appreciate it. Email me your thoughts at patriots@eddiezipper.com. That's patriots@eddiezipper.com. And listen, if you live in one of those districts that is considered a toss-up right now, with a close election between the Republican candidate and the Democrat candidate for the House of Representatives, email me and tell me what's going on in that election. I want to hear from people in those districts. So please, I'm begging you, do that. patriots@eddiezipper.com. That's it for today. I'm out of here.
Yo, Taylor, I'm really happy for you. I'm going to let you finish.
You just listened to Politics for Patriots with Eddie Zipper. Email the show at patriots@eddiezipper.com and please subscribe.